undergo a fundamental change with the block editor. That change continues full steam ahead with full site editing and a proposal for a brand new admin interface. It's more important than ever before to think about the future when designing your WordPress product. Let's dive in. This is WP Product Talk.
This is WP Product Talk, a place where every week we bring you insights in product marketing, business management and growth, customer experience, product development, and more. It's your go-to podcast for WordPress product owners by WordPress product owners. And now, enjoy the show.
Hi, everybody. I'm Zach Katz, founder of Gravity Kit and Trusted Login.
And I'm Amber Hinds, CEO of Equalize Digital.
And today we're going to be talking about designing your product for the future of WordPress.
And that is why we have invited Tammy Lister to be with us on WP Product Talk. Hi, Tammy.
Hi.
Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm really pleased to be here. So I'm a product creator and I do lots of different things, fractional work. I both work on WordPress products and also with product creators on a project called Guildenberg, helping them with distribution and growing. And I sit across many disciplines. I kind of call myself lovingly a hybrid. And really, my interest is in how to navigate and use WordPress today and in the future. So that kind of brings me awesomely to the conversations I hope we're going to have today.
And so with this topic of designing for the future, it's kind of vague, but I wanted to leave it vague because I think that the future of WordPress, for me at least right now, is so uncertain. And I'd love to hear what you think the topic of designing for the future of WordPress even means.
Yeah. So I think it's going to mean something very different to every person. So there's that old fable of people trying to describe an object and everyone describing something differently. It would be the same future, and your future will be different because your products are going to be different as well. So the future of WordPress, I think, also should be different, and I'm going to clarify that. Before, WordPress was kind of, it didn't just do one thing, but it was particularly, you had to do certain things. I kind of call it the WordPress way. You had to work with it in a particular way. It was extensible to a point. So the future is really being able to take what you have in WordPress and then make it your own and adapt it. And that's quite a big statement to say, but that's kind of a lot of the work that's been going on. What you see with the editors is putting the foundation into having the basis of core is always going to be the middle point. Right? Core is always going to have to do that, but then having the extensibility and the ability to build on top of that. There was a lot I said there, but kind of we can dig into that as well.
So I'm curious for product owners, how much you feel like they should be tracking what's happening in WordPress core and really involved on that front, which can sometimes be a challenge when you're trying to run your own business, develop your own products. And how do you feel like people even know what the future of WordPress is?
Oh, there's so many points there. So first of all, should they be following? It should be easier for them to follow than it is. And I think that a lot of work is going on for that to happen. But it always can be easier because you pointed out a really good point. People are busy surviving. This world is, business is hard, right? But you're trying to build your product. You're trying to do everything. But you do need to know. And you need to know because both if you have a roadmap for a year and you are building something mid throughout the year, and it's going to either have something, a hook or something dropped, and that's going to impact you, or maybe it's going to be a feature that doesn't completely ruin your business plans, but could really change your business plans. You need to know that. So really having a big road mapping session at the beginning of the year as much as you can, but it's very difficult when you're trying to guess or you don't know. So part of it is it's both sides. Both sides have to meet. So you as the product owner and core, and I really hate kind of third person in core like that, because core is a lot of different people, and they're not just full-time contributors, they are fractional different contributors as well. having better communication methods for what is going on. So there are a number of ways. There are a number of different boards. There's been outreach programs. There's been an extensibility triage, which has been really good. I always kind of point to that one in Gutenberg. Extensibility is basically things that you find useful to extend with the editor. That's the loose term of it. But things like that, yes, you really need to know, but you cannot monitor it 24/7. And a lot of companies, particularly when they're really small, do not have the ability to fund for Five for the Future until that becomes a certain point. If you do have the capacity to do that, someone on your team doing Five for the Future and being that conduit, being backwards and like bringing that information in and having that work out is really, really important. So there wasn't a straight answer for you, but as much as you can, I think it is not perfect. I think over time, you know how to, people say drink from the fire hose. I think that's a little bit harsh, but you learn to process vast amounts of information because that's what core is, right? But you can't do that when you're processing the vast amounts of information that are your product, as well as you're trying to process core at the same time. I find that myself. Like I'm trying to do one thing over here. I can't also process everything to do with core. So I need those summaries.
What type of advice would you have for two different types of products? We have a pre-existing product that's built on old WordPress, let's say, and a new product that's being developed by somebody that's starting fresh. How would you approach these two different starting points?
So I'm going to start with the pre-existing because the first with the pre-existing is really look at, I love workshops. I love the concept of game storming, and I would say really look at what's working, kind of analyze, impact effort matrix and all those kind of fun activities. Do something like that because if you do that, then you can decide what you are going to take forward with you and what you're going to not take forward with you. New is easy because you don't have any legacy to particularly convert. I always fall back with theming, right? If you're going to do a block theme, yeah, you can do one from scratch. You can use CreateBlock plugin and do it. And I'm kind of paring it down because it's probably like the easiest. Themes is still a product. It's still an easiest thing to do, right? But if you're going to convert a classic theme, there's a lot of complications, particularly if it's hooked to a plugin, or it's a plugin that has a classic theme. You have shortcodes which aren't fully supported. You have this which isn't fully supported, and that, and then it's like a jumper, right? You start pulling a thread, and then something isn't like. So that's what you're going to have to unpick, and then you get to the point of what is native enough, and I'm going to kind of describe that. You need to know what is available to you in core to be able to decide what to choose to use or not. So often people are like, I can't use this, and that's totally valid. But understanding whether something is there or not, and then you can make that decision. And quite often it's, I can't use this, but you don't understand whether it's there to use or not. There was kind of like some word soup. I got into that a little bit, but you've really got to, it's hard, but really like listen and understand everything. And then you can decide what's going to work for you and what's going to not. Because for some products, even new products, it's not going to work being 100% native, because maybe you need to build on top of WordPress, or maybe you need to build because you're going to have WordPress and then you're going to support another open web framework, and you're going to do this and you're going to hit this, or your integration is this or this or this, depending on your business model, right? Your thing, it's first the job to be done by your product. It's not, WordPress is not your job to be done. That's kind of right. We've got this, I go back to that WordPress way concept. We used to have to do things a certain way. And we used to go, it's the WordPress way. And yeah, but it should be the way that our users are successful, not just because the way WordPress forced us to do things. So there's a lot there, but yeah, I hope that answers.
I think you may have made some people mad.
Oh,
we don't need to do
no.
things the WordPress way. I can only imagine what some of our viewers are thinking right now.
It's not that we don't have to do it the WordPress way. We don't have to think we only do it the WordPress way. And I think that that's the thing. Or it's not, we never had to do it a WordPress way. Often we presume, and I'm going to unpack this because it's not, I never intend to kind of make mad at all. It's more, we presume we have painted ourselves into a corner, right? We presume this is the only way that you can do something. But now maybe, so theming is a good example. We presumed we could only do one thing a certain way with theming because that was the only way we could do it. Now we have options. And do you choose to use all those options all the time? Nope. Sometimes those options aren't going to work for you. Sometimes the classic way is going to work for you. Sometimes the non-classic way is going to work for you. And that it means that the traditional WordPress way of theming is adaptable now. So that's kind of what I mean by it. Not that you're not doing the WordPress way. It's more that you aren't presuming that this is the only way to do something. That's kind of where I'm going with that. Just to clarify that a little bit, because I absolutely adore WordPress. It's more really not being so stringent, thinking because I've always done, and I do this because I've always done it this certain way, it must be that way. It probably is adaptable now, and just being able to be open to that and learning. And if it isn't, raising your hand and saying, hey, this thing isn't supported anymore, and this is really useful, and this is actually a foundational part of WordPress. That's also part of the conversation.
When designing a product, the old WordPress way, you have a settings screen, you use like a form table, and you use WordPress's not very nice way of saving settings.
I don't think it's not very nice. I think it was absolutely the paradigm. If you think when the settings page was made.
Oh no, and that's what I'm saying. Not very nice now. It was fine then, and WordPress settings, and unfortunately there's no settings framework or input framework, even though there was a lot of work put into it, and I think that should be resumed and merged into the core. There's no way to do a nice settings screen in WordPress the WordPress way right now. It doesn't look good. So everybody's been rolling their own settings framework and settings screens to recreate the wheel, because like you said, Tammie, what is native enough doesn't always align with what is good enough and what is what your customers expect for user interaction and user experience. So where do you draw the line moving forward between recreating the wheel, saying WordPress isn't moving fast enough for the needs of my product, and I'm going to have to do it myself, or looking at track and waiting for the core to catch up?
Well, you need to deliver your product. And I think that there's two things. One, being vocal about when something doesn't work. I don't think there's enough of that. And that's because both sides. I think it's equally the people who are making the product. When I've made a product, I've thought, and I'm just going to speak for myself because I should never speak for anybody else. I thought, I'm just going to continue on, and I've not made that issue, or I've not made that GitHub ticket, or I've not done this thing because I've just thought, oh no, nobody's going to want to. Turns out there's a lot of other people who are also experiencing that. Or even if I have an idea that I don't think is going to get in, it starts a conversation. Or it tells me that this thing is never going to get in core and I've got to work around it, to be honest. And if some buts and thinking it might get in core don't help me with my roadmap. But there comes a point where you know what the job to be done about your I love that framework, but you know what has to be done with your product, you know what has to be done with your business model, you know what has to be shipped, and holding up waiting for a track ticket to get in is probably not going to work for you. It's not going to work for you. So you have to find the balance, and the balance is going to be, do you put a training wheels solution in, or do you do a full solution that works around it? And that really is just going to be down to some litmus, some testing, finger in the air a little bit, and temperature change. And core people are pretty open to some conversations, more open than I would always recommend not just Twitter, X, or whatever we're calling it today, as the conversation means. I don't always find that that's the best. Sometimes it's where we do the conversation. But asking on the ticket and saying like, hey, literally, what is the time frame on this? And just being honest. I don't see that enough. And I think we need to talk. Sorry.
Oh, well, I was just gonna. I didn't mean to interrupt, but that's interesting because I do feel like there have been multiple tickets I've seen that in fact
Okay.
impacted plugin developers where people literally said, "What is like the
Okay.
the 18 months that we've been waiting to get an answer on whether or not
Yeah.
we'll get our plugin active install counts back," right? And people have
Okay.
said that, and there just isn't a response. I mean,
Okay.
yeah, I
I
don't
kind
know.
of mean on plugins, yes, I see it, but on features, you don't see it so much.
Mm,
Um, so if someone's like, I really need this hook or I really need this feature, you don't see that so much. If we're not getting the answers, that is a completely different conversation, and I'm not
mhm,
everywhere. Um, so, but I think it really is part of, if you come up with a solution and you have to get the job done and you have to ship it, write about that solution and then share about that solution if you can as well. That's also part of it, because raise, hey, I had to do this to get around it. I've seen a few people do that quite successfully and then get something put in to core as well. So there's a couple of, there's no good answer, because
mhm.
if we could have a magic button, then everybody would have the WordPress they want today, right? We could all have everything we ever wanted in, and it would be amazing. It would also be weird because I'd log on and it would be my like Tammy Press, and then it'd be Amber Press and Zach Press, and it would be, but core has to find that middle, that mean
Yeah.
throughout everything. But if it's absolutely something that is going to prevent your product from being successful, I'm pretty sure that there's a job to be done there, that other products need it to be done. If it's something like make everything flash silver just because one client happens to like it flashing silver and being flippant on purpose, then I'm probably sure that that's not going to get in core. But there's kind of like a scale of things of usability. Yeah.
Yeah, I think to your point, Zach, about where do we recreate the wheel or things like that, is I think one of the things that we have to think about as product owners is where do we, like you were saying, Tammy,
Mm.
write about it, or where do we
Mm.
open source what we've done so other people
Yeah.
can use it, so maybe they don't have to recreate the
Yeah.
wheel. And I think that's sort of the spirit of open source, which isn't
Yes.
just WordPress but also what we're building. I mean, we saw that with Yoast publishing about how they redid their settings screens
Yeah.
and saying, and here's the library or whatever resources that we can make available
Yeah.
so other plugin developers don't have to do that. And I know that can feel hard sometimes, especially if you are a small developer in a crowded space. Like, I don't know, you make forums
Yeah.
and there's a lot of forums plugins. Maybe you're like thinking, I don't want to help my competitors, right? But I think in the spirit of it, I think there's a way that we can do that, and grow our product, help other products, but in a way that either brings attention to our product, like maybe we get good PR, which will make more people aware that our product even exists, or just like positively builds reputation for our product as someone within the community. So I think that's something we sort of have to think when we encounter these spaces where maybe there isn't a good solution and we have to create a better solution. Is maybe this is an opportunity to give back to the community, or maybe we can submit a PR. Now, of course, you have the frustration of what if they don't accept it, and then I've seen that happen with stuff, and then somebody was like, "Well, this didn't get accepted, so I just turned it into my own plugin, and now it's on .org, and anyone can install it." Right?
And the problem is the job to be done is very different if you're doing it for your own plugin versus making it
Yeah, that's
generalizable for
true.
the entire 43% of the web.
Yeah.
It's a lot more, it's an order of magnitude more work to make a library that is used by the public than it is to make a library that's used internally.
Mhm.
And yeah.
My thinking now, I'm doing very specific to when I was working on the editor, is so different, and it took me quite a while to do that shift. Like, I know the gear shift. So when anyone is ever saying about the difference, I feel that gear shift, and I don't know how to vocalize that gear shift to someone, but when you are working full-time on something that literally is the middle, which is what you're trying to find, it is very like, and I've turned down tickets that I now would want in, because
Mhm.
now but I know they shouldn't get in. is also, if I put that perspective on, it's interesting in my head. I'm just going to say.
So Tammy,
But
let's go into story time, because this sounds great. I'd love to hear more about this. Story times where we talk about our personal experiences with the topic, including today's topic of product design. And Tammy, please tell us more.
Yeah, so I guess when I worked on the kind of the first phase of Gutenberg, it was always about like, how do we get the editor, like how do we get the kind of first pancake, the first editing experience out, and then it was not getting rid, but saying no to things that couldn't be included, right? And a lot of things have been added since then. But now I definitely have more perspective on, say, agency is a good one, and from observing that. And as I was saying, there's definitely tickets I'm now like, so a good example is shortcodes. Initially I was like, nobody will use shortcodes. And now I'm like, everybody needs them because classic themes, because classic experiences. So if we actually want people to convert, and it's not that people are using them, is the reality. And there needs to be, and I have no answers. So I don't have the answers. I just have either questions or some pretty hacky suggestions at this point. And I'm trying to navigate it with everybody. If we are saying this is the way that we are kind of suggesting you should go with block themes, that's great. But that then, if we want to do things like styling, you then have a problem with things like shortcodes. So having these kind of converting paths, I don't want to call them upgrade paths because they're changing, right? Whether they match or whether you change them for blocks, you don't always have that. So we have to think about those conversion paths and those changing paths. I also always think of the times when I did usability testing, and every single time I've got to see someone use the editor, I got to see a lot of it. And it really changed from seeing, we did it in actually Japan, and I got to see people just using simple notes so much. For some reason, that app just was used so much, and understanding why that note app was used, and then understanding different paths. And then really every single time I see someone use the editor that's not me, or see someone use WordPress that's not me, I learn so much. And then I'm able to also take that experience when I use the editor. And I'm not role playing them because that's peculiar, but I can kind of detach all my experience a little bit and see a little bit from their eyes when I'm creating as well, and understand that I'm creating for them. So yeah, that's a lot of stories, but really it's the stories of everyone I've ever got to see. And that's been something that's really been great to go on a journey, seeing different experiences. So
thanks for sharing. Yeah, and Amber, do you have experiences with designing for the future and product design?
Yeah, I mean, we were pretty early to decide we were going to start doing blocks back in 2018. We're like, all right, we're going to get on with this. So our first plugin that we sold, WP Conference Schedule, we built with both a short code and a block, even though it was very early, because we were like, we need the short code for all of, the other, or the thing about short codes, right, is Elementor can't use your Gutenberg block. And if you want to recognize, I mean, talking about designing for the future, this is a conversation that we've had. Like, designing for the future is not just the future of WordPress core, but the future of the WordPress user base. And when you see, WP Fusion every year, they put out a annual report and they talk about like what integrations they see, which is always really interesting. And I recommend looking at it. But Elementor for their plugin users is, I don't know, like 25, 30% of the pie are Elementor websites. And that's only growing, right? So we've had a lot of conversations with our particular plugin on two things that we think we need to do. Number one is we need to get our reports into Elementor native, because so many people use Elementor. And currently what happens is it still works, but you have to go back to the WordPress edit screen to view your report. And then you'd have to go back to the Elementor edit screen in order to fix the problem, and the back and forth, right? Like, that's not a great user experience, and that's not going to help us with adoption by Elementor users. And then the same sort of situation that I really only seriously played around with 2024 and full site editing earlier this year. I built like a test site with it because I was like, I need to do it. I need to actually figure out what this is like. And then I realized the whole homepage in 2024, it's not a page. It's built in the full site editor. Our plugin doesn't have any integrations right now. So like if you use our plugin with full site editing, building your archive pages or building your homepage literally that way, there'd be no way to scan and test the accessibility of your homepage. So we were like, okay, well, we definitely need to figure out what does this look like? How do we get our plugin and our reports into full site editing? I don't have an answer to that yet because it's a big thing for us to figure out how to tackle. But I think like as a product owner, the big thing that we've been talking about is what are most people using? And so like we're talking about these two things, which are both huge. We're going to prioritize probably the Elementor. Now I'm speaking for our CTO who's not here, but like if I look at the literal numbers and I'm like, where can I make the biggest impact and where can we have the biggest customer reach? I would choose an Elementor integration over a full site editing integration because of the literal fact that most people are not using full site editing, and especially people in our world. And that's where, you know, we've had other WP Product Talk episodes that I highly recommend people go find on our YouTube channel where we've talked about like doing customer interviews and things like that. But for us, like a lot of it is higher ed or like government, and they're like anti full site editing. Like they use blocks, but they're like, nope, not doing it, you know? So I'm
They're
like, okay.
late stage adopters.
Yeah. They're late stage adopters. So I'm like, okay, that buys us a little bit of time. But if you don't know your customers, then you don't necessarily know how to prioritize this designing for the future of WordPress, because you don't know if you have early adopters, then you need to jump on these choices right away. But what about you, Zach?
Well, it's interesting. Gravity Kit and Gravity View in particular. Gravity View is built on a custom post type. You design a view in the custom post type. We have a page builder essentially for Gravity Forms data, and then you embed that view into a post or a page using either a shortcode or a block. And we are at the same crossing point where we are this year going to be working on an Elementor integration, a Divi integration. Because we need to be where our customers are. At the same time, that has led us to have to rethink our entire structure in order to better support customizations that are available now in core, in the block editor, that you can't customize otherwise, like, you know, colors, paddings, etc. All this stuff that have become, you know, standard now. We are in the process of figuring out the structure that is required for us to not only support core, but also the other page builders that are out there. So when thinking about, you know, how do you design for core plus page builders, it's often it's for us not a simple question. No. It involves understanding at a like component level what you're doing.
And something we've talked about on that front is that, you know, perhaps what we're talking about is the baseline plugin works for core. And then you have an add-on plugin, which you don't necessarily have to sell individually. You could bundle, right? So we've talked about, we'll just bundle. When you buy Pro, you also have the ability to install the Elementor add-on. And then that way it allows maybe for some cleaner code because you're not trying to put all of that into the same. And then only the people who need that add-on would install it. That's a thought we've had about this.
And I think one of the things with the kind of the projects that are going on in core at the moment is hopefully in the future, some of this portability will be easier. And I think really we need that. We need that. We need extensibility and portability.
What do you mean by portability?
So that you can move across these different products easier. So you were saying colors. I don't... In my dreams, everyone supports JSON easily, so we can just, I don't know, whatever format, right? Let's pick one, because I hate to say we're going to pick one and then someone's going to be, I don't like JSON or whatever. And then, but we all have a unified format for styling that everyone kind of agrees to. We're all human though. And or at least we have some easier one-for-one pairing that we can do so that it's easier to convert and kind of go across. And styling is a good one, right? Because if we're not using CSS, or we're using generated CSS or inline CSS, then as you go from different page builders to themes that are actually frameworks that are actually page builders to different plugins, and you're trying to create for all these different experiences and have a plugin that doesn't have styling attached to it, or you're trying to still then, again, you kind of mentioned site editing. Site editing is a sliding scale. You can just have a tiny bit, or you can have the full support. And again, it's how much do you do? So everyone generally thinks it's everything, but it could just be you just support typography, or you just have like a theme JSON that just happens to have a color palette, right? That could literally be all you ever do in theme JSON. But that ability to be able to, we've spoken about with themes, changing your clothes without, it's a horrible analogy I'm going to use, but it's the analogy I use with themes. It used to be that it almost felt like you had to take like a body part off to change your clothes.
Content warning, everybody. So.
but it kind of worked, because you'd lose like bits of your content, or you'd lose like things, right? And that it should be as easy as changing your clothing, just changing themes. And the whole thing as well, just going through your product should be as easy. Going through different ecosystems should just be, it's still going in the WordPress ecosystem. It's WordPress, so it should all be the same language. It should all be the same conversation. So I think that is part of the problem. The portability is the problem. I think it's going to get better. I think it has to get better, and then the core product has to have more capability to just extend, and more of the things that you need to be able to adapt and use from components as well. That's kind of a long way around.
What do you see? Oh, sorry, Zach.
That's fun.
Yeah, I'm curious what line you see between this whole, like, right, so we're talking about portability and themes and plugins, and there's always this line. I know there are some product companies where they've made a theme and then they've also made a plugin, right, to try and I think help with some of this portability. But how do you see plugin developers or product developers making those choices about what goes in the theme or what goes in the plugin, or whether they should have one really big plugin or they should have 5 separate plugins so people can pick and choose? Like, do you have any recommendations for that as it fits with like the direction WordPress is going?
So I can reply first of all to how do I see people making the decisions, and I see people making the decisions as best they could before, where there was very changing information. So the information used to be try and keep everything apart, but use functions.php. And functions.php became this giant file that then hooked to lots of different files. I've done it. Hands up, kind of hands up.
It's the best file out there, yeah.
We've been working on removing and making our functions.php and our plugin as small as we possibly can.
So that is more what I say. To me, and this is personal opinion corner. And if I was kind of putting my future head on, I would say themes go back to being themes. And themes always, I Kubrick, right? Theme was a theme, and you could look at it and you could understand it was a theme.
So like only CSS in the theme?
Probably not really CSS if we're talking theme JSON.
Okay, so no CSS.
Maybe a little bit. Only styles, right? Only styling and probably patterns and templates, right? I always kind of joke about the site editor's Dreamweaver when you're creating, because it's kind of like Dreamweaver when you're making a site. But that's probably one way of doing it. That works for a certain type of themes. That doesn't work if you think of enterprise agency. That doesn't work. That doesn't scale if you are then having to do compiling and doing different things, or you're doing different. So your use case again, and where you apply it to. You mentioned education establishments. They are probably going to have very complex themes because those themes are probably going to hook into some systems. They're also probably going to have a lot of legacy content. They're going to probably have some legacy templates as well. They may have some static pages that they need potentially. If they have all of those things, they're definitely probably going to need mega menus at some point. If they have some of those things, core won't have those. So you're going to have to bring in additional parts of those. So really as light as possible, because the lighter you do in theme, I quite like the idea of companion plugins to themes. I think we forgot that plugins are kind of awesome. And we thought that we just had to put it all in the theme. That does create a little bit of an issue if you're trying to then release the whole thing, because trying to have a plugin that is dependent, or a theme that is dependent on the plugin, but then I would say it's not a theme. So there is that kind of middle ground. And also I would say it's a framework, not a theme. I love page builder. I think there's totally a place for page builders and frameworks still in this ecosystem because they build on top and they have that place. But yeah, there's no easy answers in this. It's really about how can you do the simplest that you need to get the job done and just not overcomplicate. Start simple, like add complications as you need them. I think before we were like, I'm going to do a theme, so I need this function, which I've saved in my, I've done this, I've saved in my template because I've always used it before. And this is my functions.php file that I've always used. So I repeat using it. No, try and think of what you were saying. Try and think of like, how can I take the new information? How can I iterate each time?
Tammie, there's so much that's going on with WordPress admin redesign talk. How does a product owner and plugin owners, including not just themes, but like plugin owners, how do you future-proof your product for all this stuff that's changing right now?
I think that's a really hard question. I think the biggest one is, if you go near some of those screens, and it's pretty obvious which screens are going to be attacked, like the post, the page, edit. At the moment, they are sectioned off in the editor. So they are in the editor section. So if you turn it on, you will see that they're there. If you are in there and you, at the moment, completely take it over and you import a library and you completely redo, you may completely redo so that you aren't going to have problems, but you probably are going to have huge problems because either something could get removed. So go as native as possible for those. And really, you probably want to be doing that anyway. One of the things I know story time's finished, but one of the things I see a lot of is not using the primary button that is recognized throughout WordPress as being a primary button, and changing the color often to red. Which is a warning color.
Stop. Yeah.
Super scary. Or changing the interface so that someone has to relearn the interface. That's not useful from a usability perspective anyway for people. That's just going to be super complicated. And probably, I would love to see your data because it may be awesome, and that's totally fine because you might be in a niche that works for you. And I always love to be wrong. But generally, if those people are experiencing any other sections of WordPress, they're going to be pretty used to the paradigm of that's a primary button, that's a secondary button, this is what this page does. And if only on your product that completely changes, it's going to be sugar than you, and then they're not going to be able to find things anyway. So yeah.
Do you think that like WP list table to output the posts table will be migrated over to the new structures? Like if you're using native renderers, for example?
Yeah, I don't know how that's going to happen at the moment. And I don't have a crystal ball. I think it's going to be done as gently as possible because it's such a big area. And I think the fact that it's been done we always had the plugin for the editor, which was always good. We have the plugin and we have an isolated area for it now. So if you, it is over there. You have to go in editor and you have to go there. So that works. But I think keeping an eye out on, so there's a developer blog you can keep an eye on, and on the core news, and just getting the heads up there is really, really important as well. I don't have a straight answer, but I do think that it's going to be done as gently and as not scary as possible, because it just has to be. It's such a change. But if you are doing red buttons, don't do red buttons.
So I think along those lines, and I think it's helpful that you pointed out, which blogs to follow.
Yeah.
What would you recommend, or can you talk just a little bit briefly for plugin developers or theme developers who have never gone through the process of trying a beta version of WordPress, right? They just find out what happens when it releases, which,
That's a good
let's
point.
be real, I don't think we've tested on every beta with ours. Like sometimes it just, like how would someone even go about finding one? How would they set it up? And I know that's like, is there a good resource you have that you can point plugin owners to, or product owners to?
Yeah. So the core handbook is a lot. So to point someone to the core contribution handbook would be a lot. I actually would probably go really simple with my first, particularly if we're talking about the future and we're talking about the editor. The editor is a lot of other things because there's experiments going on there. But we talked about having, there's experimental features under the Gutenberg plugin that you can turn on. So I would literally choose whatever locally installed WordPress you have, or have a site somewhere that you have on your team, put up a plugin. It's not going to be on your main site. Do not do it on your live site. You can if you want, don't. And just use it. Just experiment.
So like the Gutenberg plugin, install that and turn it on.
And turn the experimental features on, and just that's step one. That isn't all of WordPress, but that starts you seeing the features we've just been speaking about.
For the editor.
There's also for the editor, and also the pages we've been talking about. And then there's the beta tester plugin that you can also do for WordPress. So those are the approaches that I would do, is just have it in a siloed space, and just don't feel that you have to, here's a release I have to test, here's a release I have to test. I would almost see it as once a month you go and check out what's it's brewing. So very English phrase, but that's kind of the approach that I would take. If you sign up, so there are really good sites. So Gutenberg changelog is really good, or on Gutenberg Times. Those kind of quick shots of information, those are the best ways that I think of getting like what's the latest coming out of these things, rather than having to trawl through masses of information. That's the best way. You're always going to get it at the kind of keyword counts as well. You're going to get the snapshots of information, but really that's the best way, is not to feel that you have to test and you have to do the thing. Just gently take yourself, but have that regular cadence of testing, I think, is useful.
Yeah. And I think this is probably a good time for us to transition. And we always like to end with our best advice for product owners. So what would you say? I'll let you go first, and then maybe Zach can follow with what's your best advice for product owners who want to design for the future of WordPress?
Okay, I'm going to have a couple of pieces here, if I can. Iterate and try things and experiment. I don't think it's very hard to experiment when you're also trying to like build and release, but try. Don't get stuck on perfect. Try and be as perfect so that you don't do any harm with what you release, because doing harm with release, not good. So make sure that you're not going to, do any patterns that hurt people, or do anything that causes harm or data loss or anything, but just try and experiment. Create, really lean into others and create more. If you can collaborate when you're creating, you're going to be stronger. You're going to get that information. You're not going to know everything. And if you think you know everything, you don't know everything. I don't know everything at all. So try and find out what you don't know and collaborate with others so that you do know, because this community is really powerful and has some incredible product builders that are so open with their information. And often there's a simpler way that you can make something. I kind of use that WordPress way, but we didn't think of the simpler way. And the simpler way is actually the real WordPress way. We just sometimes get confused thinking it has to be done a more complicated way, and actually it doesn't have to be done that more complicated way. WordPress is by its very nature really simple and has some really simple procedures and some really good things to do. We've just kind of sometimes, I know I do, overcomplicate it in the things that we do and overprocess it. So yeah, just think of that, just try and be a bit more simple in our processes and in everything that we create.
And for us at Gravity Kit, I find it hard as a product owner to come up with solutions. I have a really easy time of recognizing problems and seeing that in 5 years with the admin interface completely changed, we're going to need to have changed something on our end. Finding the path to that future is complicated for me. And so what I recommend, best advice, chat with somebody, chat with a friend, chat with a coworker, chat with a power user customer about what they envision your future being, and then hire a consultant if you're able to. Hire somebody to help you break it down into actionable steps and put together a game plan if you're not able to do it yourself, which I struggle with. So make sure to think about all the ways that your product might be different in the future so that you can accommodate that and won't have to refactor in the future. Because a wrong choice is a lot more costly than a delayed choice. So take your time, think it through, and then start with the easiest actionable step and do the testing that Tammy recommended. How about you, Amber?
Yeah, I think my best advice is, I don't know. I think try to start doing it, because I think a lot of us are sort of living in our silo, maybe not paying attention to the blogs or not doing the testing. So, starting to think about it, rip off the Band-Aid on full site editing if you haven't yet. Which is funny to say,
and then put it back on
later,
and wait a year. I'm sorry, Tammy.
But yeah.
Okay.
I think at least spend some time playing around with it, even if only to be like, yeah, my product's not ready for this.
Yeah.
It'll change how you see WordPress completely.
Yeah. And maybe it won't be all bad, and then there'll be other things that you're like, yeah, this is horrible, and you can go gripe about it somewhere.
But I think that's key. You can say it's not for me if you've tried it.
Yeah. And so I think on that front, just spending some time thinking about it, doing it, try and consider how that might impact your roadmap. And then, as I mentioned before, be aware of who your customers are, because that can really impact, how quickly you need to respond to what's happening in core or in other products that might touch on your product as well.
Well, that's some good advice. That's a wrap for our show. Tammy, before we go, I want to share something from Adam Weeks, who was a guest on our show previously. He said, I think Tammy Press would be pretty fantastic. And I agree. I can't wait to see your fork of WordPress, Tammy. So, Tammy, thank you so much for joining us. Where can people find you online?
So you can find me at Karmatos or the things at tammylister.com.
Well, thank you. We'll make sure to check out Tammy there. Tune in next week, and we're going to be having another great conversation about WordPress.
And special thanks to Post Status for being our green room where we prep all of these talks. If you're enjoying these shows, please do us a favor, hit like, subscribe, all those fancy YouTube things. Make sure you share it with your friends, reference this show in your newsletter. And most of all, as Zach said, we look forward to seeing you back here next week.